So, these are all smiling. All right, girls, hair back, and Kanan. He's always pretty good about that. And I would also suggest any rings, any jewelry, maybe some bracelets that are dangly. Jared, don't bring your dangly bracelets tomorrow. All right, take off your rings because you're going to be getting into the dough pretty hard. Your mixer you want to attach with your paddle, all right, but have your dough hook ready and available. And the first thing we're going to do is get some hot water and measure out our yeast. Do you mind doing just a little bit less than a tablespoon? Up here. I think I told you guys yesterday, our water gets to about 100 degrees, so you might need to nuke it for a little bit. We'll see. All right, and yeast spread is something that's kind of affected by the outside temperature and the outside humidity, because it's kind of rainy. If you guys didn't hear it yet, it's not super nice out. So we might have to use a little bit more flour than what's called for. Humidity tends to do that. So if you're feeling like your water's super hot and your temperature gauge is not showing that, grab a second thermometer. It's not even reaching 100. We're going to have to nuke it for a little bit. And I would just start with like 20 seconds, maybe even a little less. You can always add more time, but if you have to sit and wait for it to cool down for 5 minutes, you might as well just get new water. Does that make sense? Start with a little bit of time, measure it, and then you can kind of gauge how powerful your microwave is. Most of these microwaves are not very powerful, but we'll see. All right, so we are trying to get our water to be about 115, anywhere from 110 to 115. If it's over 120, it's going to kill it. If it's under 120, or sorry, if it's under 110, it's not going to activate it. So it just has to be that nice, warm temperature. Not quite there yet. Got it. Just making sure it doesn't get too hot. Yeah. All right. So you're going to take your yeast. Where's that 1 cup? Can we just use a tablespoon of sugar real quick? All right, just a plain old, I don't want to call this just salt that's up there. And some Pam. Perfect. All right, and if you remember, I talked about any recipe that I use, I always activate it this way. Even if it says put it all in the mixer, I just start this way. And then it should look kind of like our bottles from yesterday. We'll give it a little bit of time. We want it to get puffy. All right, so I'm going to gather the rest of my ingredients a while. Saying spoon, flour into measuring cup, and level off. All right, we've done flour, what, once with cookies? Flour, where's the 1 cup measure? You think about measuring flour, all right? Sometimes you guys go like this. What's wrong with that? Yeah.
You packed it in.
You packed it. What's the only thing that you should really pack, ever?
Brown sugar.
Brown sugar, okay? Everything else you should pretty much spoon in. And you can tell if you packed it too much by when you dump it out. Do you see how it left kind of like the impression of this? So just take your regular old spoon. Something funky in there. Oops. Now it's a 1/4 cup. So why is it like a range for the flour? Anybody know? Remember when I was talking about that humidity? All right, so I'm going to start with probably about 2 cups in here. And then I'm going to measure out a 1/3 cup. And I'm going to use it if I need it, but I'm also going to know exactly how much is in there. All right, so if I use like half of the 1/3 cup, then I know I use 2.5 cups, you know. If I need to do 3 1/4 cups, I have the 1/4 cup, I can do that. So bread is really like, almost kind of like a science, it's an art. start with 2. I am going to measure my third because I'm thinking with all the rain I'm going to need it. All right, we already measured out a tablespoon of sugar, and we'll put that in. So the salt is a 1/2 tablespoon. So a lot of you guys don't have a 1/2 tablespoon. I think I'm lucky I have one. So what could you use instead of a 1/2 tablespoon? All right, so the hint is 1 tablespoon is 3 teaspoons. So what could you use if you don't have a 1/2 tablespoon? A teaspoon and a half. All right. So the only ingredient you guys will really need to come and get from me tomorrow would be the yeast and the butter. Everything else will be in your kitchen. So I'm going to put the salt and the sugar in there. I'm just going to turn it on for just a little bit. Put a mix in there. All right, get cleaned up a little bit. See my yeast starting to get bubbly. That's what we want. I'm going to let it get a little bit more bubbly. Okay, we have our yeast pretty well ready. Okay, so you're going to have to let that. So you want some good bubbles that's showing some growth because the yeast needs warmth. What else does it need? Food and some type of liquid to grow. All right, so I'm going to pour that in. That one came out pretty clean. If you have a lot of bubblies and stuff on the side, you'll have to scrape that down with a rubber scraper. So now the important part. Can everyone see, or you need me to move this out a little more? Good. All right, so it starts out kind of as like a wet, muddy mess, and it's going to kind of come together more, and that's what we want. All right, I'm going to start to add my butter that we softened. All right, I'm going to add a little bit more flour. Okay, do you see how it's still very, very sticky? It's not pulling away from the sides of the bowl. Those are 2 indications that we're ready to switch to the dough hook and that we're almost done with this process. So I'm going to put in about maybe 1/3 to 1/4 cup. See if I can get it a little bit drier. Still kind of sticky. Do you guys see the difference? Now it's pulling away from the side of the bowl. That's good. That's what we want. If you let it run long enough, it will get super sticky again. But that's our indication. We can clean this off. It's easiest if you let it on your mixer to clean off as much as you can. It's kind of weird. I'm right-handed. Let me get over here. Just a little more flour. All right, and the dough hook is actually going to start our process of kneading. Have you guys ever kneaded bread before? Well, you're about to learn. We'll be doing it every day for a while, pretty much. It's pulling away from the side. You guys notice the difference from when it started till now? All right, just need a little bit. Such a loser. After your 20-minute rest, you're going to take the bread pan and just lightly spray it. If not, it's going to stick to your pan and you're not going to like that. All right, so got the bread. I'm going to grab just a little bit of flour. Got to bring it to life, you know. Oops, a little stickier than I thought. Magic's made, man. Look at this. Oh, we should have put a little bit more on the bottom. Let that be a note to you guys tomorrow. All right. So my goal, you guys need to read. All right, just a little bit. You don't want to get it too dry. All right, you can knead out some of the air. Did you hear that little fart? It wasn't me, it was the bread. Work out some of those bubbles. I need a little more flour. All right, so why I have you get this bread pan ready is this is your goal, okay? You want to still some in there. You want to roll it to be about the width of the pan. All right. Guess I didn't punch it hard enough to begin with. So, nice little punch tomorrow. I'm not killing it. Okay.
She went like 4 on height through the bread.
All right. You're simply just trying to roll it out. It'll probably be difficult, just like you guys are to your parents. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to carefully roll it up. Do you guys see how I'm trying to roll it very, very tight? Okay, kind of like a little log. And then I'm going to squeeze these ends together so that you can't really see them. They stay together. All right, that's considered the seam, and I'm going to put that seam down. Really airy. All right. Shape it in. Put saran wrap on your kitchen block. That's it. Then we'll bake it the next day. Any questions?